How many films do you watch a year where you're just like, oh my God, that performance is incredible. That's of course going to get Oscar nominations. And then as the Oscars approach, you're like, oh, that's nowhere to be seen. That's what we're talking about today in the subject of this video. The 10 films that I believe have performances deserving of Oscar recognition. But in reality, I don't really see a world in which next year's Oscar ceremony, any of these films will be recognized. But let's just kickstart it at number 10, which this is a recent entry on this list. And the reason it's recent is because I actually thought this actor had a great chance at getting a nomination this year, just due to the strength of performance. And then a trailer for another movie that felt far more aligned with the Oscars that's with this same actor came out. I'm like, oh, he can't be nominated twice in the same category. And they're going to default to this other film, A Complete Unknown, where Timothee Chalamet is playing Bob Dylan, which means I just think, unfortunately, Dune Part Two, Paul Atreides, Timothee Chalamet will not go recognized for this performance. Dune Part 2 is going to get a lot of nominations. I'm already betting 10 plus. But the reality is, I thought this was maybe his best performance in his career. This was a real boy to man performance for me. I thought he was sensational in this movie, specifically as the film quite literally becomes even more on his shoulders, especially in the third act, that final set piece of his. That is where you just understand, oh, this is an actor becoming their own. To me, it almost felt like shades of Godfather Part 2 with Al Pacino, where you're just watching someone become so evil and manipulative and just their spirit break. And it's just such a powerful final 30 minutes of a performance that, along with everything else that he does well in that film, I just think this is a very clear Best Actor nomination where I just wish more attention would be paid to him, I should say. So that's why Timothée Chalamet is coming in at number 10. Coming in at number 9, this is another movie where I could see this film getting a handful of nominations, but it's not going to be for performances. The Academy did love Mad Max Fury Road enough to give it a multitude of wins, but it didn't get it for Charlize Theron for Best Supporting Actress for Furiosa. And in reality, it's not going to get it for a film that tanked financially, wasn't as critically revered as the last film. And that's why I think this performance that Chris Hemsworth gives as the film's villain, the Mentis, is not going to go recognized, even though I think Furiosa may be Hemsworth's some of his best work as an actor. The reason I think this is because Mad Max films are usually noted for their silence. These are movies where dialogue is so not important necessarily. And in this film, this is a character that probably says the most words of any character combined in a Mad Max film. Like, you could probably take all of Max's dialogue in all 4 of his films, and it still doesn't come close to equating how much Dementis talks in this movie. I think it's a fundamental reshaping of what makes Mad Max interesting as a franchise. And to do such a pivot and to put it all on Chris Hemsworth's very broad, very handsome shoulders, I just cannot deny how important this performance is for him as an actor and for what it represents within the world of Furiosa. Like I said, I was just so impressed with what he is able to achieve. And I wish this was a performance that was being talked more about, especially as it comes to Oscar season. Coming in at number 8, this is a film that I saw at Sundance earlier this year. And everyone right off the gate was talking about how this other performance in the movie was going to be the one that FYC campaigns were built around. This was the actor who really just kind of cemented that not only was he great on television, he is also great in movies. And while watching it and knowing how good the other actor in A Real Pain is, Kieran Culkin, I kept finding myself thinking, like, are we underrating Jesse Eisenberg in A Real Pain? Because he's really good in A Real Pain, the film that he directs, writes, and stars in. I think this character that he plays of David Kaplan is kind of the focal point of the movie. I think what Eisenberg does in this movie is it allows him to be partnered so well off of Culkin that it allows Culkin to really be the exploration of the movie, but Eisenberg is the anchor, and that's why I really find it an impressive performance, well worth highlighting. And real quick, almost at 1,000 subscribers. Maybe I've already hit it by the time you've watched this video, but thank you all for your support. 1,000 means the world to me, and if you're liking this video, please hit subscribe now. Moving on, because I don't want to bore you with any of those details. Number 7. This is another performance where people came out of the movies talking about one performance and maybe even a little bit of a second performance. And there was another performance in this movie of Trio where I was just like, why is this one going ignored? I think this performance is actually by far my favorite of the 3. Mike Faust, who just proved himself enormously in Spielberg's West Side Story. I think it's the best part of Challengers as his character of Art Donaldson. He is the husband to Zendaya's character in this film. I think the best aspects and beats of this movie fall around this character of Faust and his relationship with everyone in this movie, his relationship with Zendaya in this movie and Josh O'Connor. He has the more unsavory role, I guess, between the two, where Josh O'Connor just gets to be extremely, extremely handsome, kind of have this charisma to his performance. Faust has this a bit of this tentative performance to him. He's a little bit, I don't want to say shy, but there's something a little bit more withheld to him, and just how he's struggling to relate to Zendaya, especially when you have just the uber charisma of Josh O'Connor next to him, and he feels like he's bubbling to explode the whole movie. It's why I really like this performance out of Challengers. In a film about competition, I felt him competing the most with the other characters, and that's why I really liked what Mike Faust does. And I think this is a performance worth recognition. And to be honest, this would be my favorite performance out of Challengers by far. Number 6. I was trying to be cute about this, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to just double up on this actor now. But I was also thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, but of a movie that I did not like at all, he's by far the best part, and I think he's legitimately great in Kinds of Kindness. That's Jesse Plemons, who is just, and specifically he'd be for best actor in this one. He is phenomenal with Yorgos's sensibilities, with his style, with the meanness that Yorgos has as a director and as a writer. I think Plemons nails it right off the bat. And specifically the 2 first anthology stories, they focus the most on the Plemons character. And I think the first one in particular, this guy who's just kind of being abused the entire time, trying to win favor with his boss, I just found him so enlighteningly good in Kinds of Kindness. Like, it's one of those ones where it was another one where I'm like, I didn't know Plemons could do this as a performer, where he's always on this frustration that you feel, but it's always a little bit more withheld as an actor. He's very intimidating, but he's also just not intimidating at the same time. I just think it's a pretty fulfilling performance that he is able to give out as a performer. It's just something that I've never quite seen him have as a level to reach. And again, it's just one of these ones where the comedy specifically, and we know Plemons can be a really funny guy based on what we've seen of him from Game Night, to do this tonality of comedy, which is super dark, which is super uncomfortable, and to nail it, and I think nail it the best out of any of his co-stars, I just thought it was a revelation from him, and I'm very much on board for the Jesse Plemons Kinds of Kindness campaign. Number 5 for me is another performance where I was just like, we're taking this actor for granted, because Tom Hardy as a bike rider, that's really all that movies need to be about. Like, he is so great in the Bikeriders, and there's this a little bit of a reservedness from him. I think we think of Tom Hardy as this such a ridiculous big character, and he certainly has the accent work in this movie to go along with what we're used from Tom Hardy, but every scene where it feels like he should go big, he subverts our expectations and takes it a little bit more grounded. He feels really in control in this movie, which for Tom Hardy, you don't always think of him as an actor in control. And it's why I liked him specifically so much in the Bikeriders, because it felt like an interesting subversion of everything that he's done post pre getting to the Bikeriders. It feels like the antithesis of everything that he's achieved earlier success in his career. So to see this maturity from him, to see this dangerousness from him, but also to see him kind of be the sensible one in a story, to be the one that you're like, oh, this guy is in full control. And you just don't think he is because he's Tom Hardy, but I think it's a wonderful performance from Tom Hardy that I think is the reason the Bikeriders work so well and allows Austin Butler and Jodie Comer to have the performance that they have in this film. Coming in at number 4, this one's kind of a duo one, but I am going to single it to one performance to keep with the gimmick of this video. I did say Glen Powell for Hitman. He plays Gary, the titular Hitman, quote unquote. Glen Powell is kind of the show-stopping performance out of this movie. The comedy is incredible in this movie. He's so funny. Every costume change, every dialect change, it is a powerhouse comedic performance. Along with the fact that he writes this movie and produces this movie, like, you can understand how well he is in control of Richard Linklater's tone in this movie. And he just feels so perfectly natural in this role, especially as we see him kind of switch between his character and personas. And that's what I think is this interesting exploration that this movie has, where it's just one to another. You see this guy being able to slip on and off, this chameleon-like effect, and what that says about us as people, that we have that ability within us as long as it's kind of just pushed out of it. I think Powell is sensational in this movie. Coming in at number 3, this was a film that I forgot to review or just never got around to reviewing it, but I highly recommend it. I saw it on HBO maybe about a month or so ago, and it is Am I Okay?, which stars Dakota Johnson. This is a movie about a character named Lucy who, at a certain stage in her life, comes out as a lesbian and basically starts to have relationships with other women, and just kind of that struggle admitting it to her friends, finding love or finding like physicality, however she has to define love at this moment in her own life. I think it's a wonderful adult coming of age story, which is not something that you always see of. I think it's one that can be deeply upsetting at times. I think it is also one that can be deeply comedic and funny and well just realized. And I think it all relies on Dakota Johnson just as such a natural performer in this movie. And I think that's when Dakota Johnson works best, is when she is just so natural and real as a human being, where you just understand everything that she's kind of holding back and as an actress, and why she's not sharing certain issues that are going on with her life, or why she's so reserved, or how she uses comedy to mask pain. All of that just works in such great effects in Am I Okay? And I think she is extremely underrated, and it's a film worth checking out. So I would really suggest Am I Okay?, now available to stream on Max. Coming in at number 2, this is the performance, and it's just a movie that is going way too overlooked with people right now. And I think it's a movie that's probably honestly going to become more and more relevant, especially in the current American political landscape that we exist in and will be existing in up to and post this election season. It is Civil War. It is Jesse Plemons in Civil War specifically. It'd be a best supporting actor performance. He goes unlisted/unnamed in this movie. He's just described as a racist, ultra-nationalist militant. The Plemons scene is the thesis of this movie. How cruel, how evil we become, and how much people will seek the opportunity to just kill one another without really rhyme or reason. He is frightening in Civil War. This is the most upsetting scene in a movie that I've seen this year. This is the one where I felt myself clench the most. It is an extremely upsetting, disturbing, tense scene, and it is, like I said, it's the key to understanding Civil War, why Alex Garland chose to make it. This notion that this movie is apolitical is completely a false reality for a movie to exist in, because that's not what this movie is. Are the politics ever spoken as black and white? No, but the politics are all there, and it's through these scenes of Jesse Plemons. There's no question of where this guy's political ideology leans, and that is the, if you want to say it, comp to modern American politics and what he is exploring, and this idea of this nation being closer to civil war and what leads to it. It is all found within this militant character that Plemons plays. And I think it is such an upsetting, perfect performance and the perfect just scene and bottle in a movie where that is the highlight of the movie that I think has a ton of highlights. Civil War is still my favorite film that I've seen this year. And coming in at number 1, I have to get my singing voice ready because let's do it. Let me in now, and it can be nice. Make me go now, and I have to come back. Not once, not twice, but as many times as I like. It is Nick Cage giving the most upsetting, craziest, disturbing, just every adjective that you can throw out to describe something horrifying and unreal in Longlegs. Nicolas Cage is a serial killer. Longlegs is a sensational performance. I would venture to say it's one of Nick Cage's pretty easily one of his best performances. What he achieves in this movie, being quite literally the epitome of evil, I've never seen anything like this. But Nick Cage, what he achieves, I mean, this is evil personified, and not even just evil personified, like this is the devil. It's something that just sticks in your brain, like it's like just in you and you feel it, and it's so unnerving and just like distressing that people like this are out there in the world, and just how he is able to capture it. And I know people are annoyed with the bigness of this performance, and I think they're silly. Like, this performance works because of what Nick Cage brings in as an actor. I love that this performance and that Oz Perkins for Longlegs like make this character of Longlegs essentially a loser. Like, he's this guy that's obsessed with glam rock. Like, he has all this botched plastic surgery. Like, there's nothing cool about the way he lives, the way he dresses, like any of it. And it's just such a pathetic way of existence, and yet it's so terrifying of what then he achieves in this movie. And it's almost like fascinating that he's accidental. Like, technically he doesn't really achieve much, but he is the harbinger of doom, I guess you could say. And I don't know. I just think it's a wonderful performance from Nicolas Cage. And it's the same type where it's just like Anthony Hopkins got the best actor for Hannibal Lecter. Like, we've had these performances come in. I think Longlegs is too niche / too upsetting / the subject matter is just going to be too much for a voter to get over. And there is going to be this genre bias, especially with the way that Longlegs unfolds, and specifically where it ends, where I think Nicolas Cage's final frame in this movie is up there with one of the most upsetting endings I've seen in quite a while. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful performance from Nicolas Cage, and just of a guy who's been giving wonderful performances basically his whole career, and specifically for the past 5 years has really just been hitting it out of the park yet again. Like, it's just a really impressive thing for him to be able to achieve, and I really highly recommend this film, even though it's upsetting. There is no question about it, but I really do recommend Longlegs, and I think it is so worth Oscar recognition / consideration. So those are my 10 favorite performances of this year that I think deserve Oscar support / nominations that I don't think are realistic to get them. So what do you think? Are there any other films that I missed? Let me know in the comments below. And again, if you like this video, thank you all for helping me get to basically 1,000 subscribers, or maybe more by the time you're seeing this video. Maybe less, maybe I haven't achieved it just yet. I really do, from the bottom of my heart, thank you.